Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Collaborating on a book can be a fun and fulfilling project between family members, friends, and colleagues. But co-authored books add several issues to the already big amount of challenges that go along with self-publishing. We should first define what is a co-authored book. Co-authored books are written jointly by multiple authors. Two-author books are very common. However, it's not unusual to see 3 or 4 authors collaborating on a book. Unlike an anthology, a co-authored book is not usually a collection of writings. The finished co-authored book would seem to be written by just one author. You're going to notice differences between writing styles of authors. I've seen this in some manuscripts I reviewed that were collaborative efforts. But a good editor can edit it so that it looks like it's done by just one author. All co-authors share in the revenue or royalties for the book. The percentages paid and the payment details and all kinds of other details are usually negotiated. Here are some examples of co-authored books. James Patterson, the very famous suspense and thriller author, has co-authored many novels. In the marketing and business nonfiction arena, J. Conrad Levinson also wrote many nonfiction books with other authors. The author with the most star power and recognition is usually given top billing, even if the other co-authors wrote the biggest chunk of the book. This is done because that star author is putting his or her author brand behind the work. So you'll see these books billed as by, let's say, James Patterson and then the name of the co-author. With these celebrity level co-authored books, usually it's a traditional publishing type project. And the traditional publisher handles a lot of the really big amount of details that go into co-authored books. They handle the contracts, they handle the marketing, they handle the editing, and all of those things. But when it comes to self-publishing, it gets very, very messy. The reason self-published co-authored books get messy is because nobody really knows who's in charge. In those traditionally published books where there's a star author and the traditional publisher, all their pro teams working on it, it's easy to know who's directing the traffic and direction for the book. But when it comes to self-publishing, it might be friends or family members or colleagues, so who's taking the lead? You have to remember too that when you self-publish, let's just use Kindle Direct Publishing as our platform of choice for all of our discussions today. On KDP, the book is published under one author. So that generally means that the person whose account is going to be running the self-publishing aspect of it usually is in control of the project. This can put co-authors in a very precarious position, especially when it comes to royalty payments or control over the final product. The lead author, whose account this is being published under, could just run away with it. So a huge amount of trust has to exist between the authors on the project. This is the biggest reason why I generally do not do any co-authoring of self-published books. Not interested. And if you go this route, you better get an attorney who can sort out all the rights, responsibilities, payment arrangements, royalties, revenues, taxes, all those really difficult issues that are going to come up anytime you have a joint venture collaboration between parties. Generally, a co-authored book does not create a business partnership. And even though that might be obvious, generally that would be included in the contract too, that it does not create a partnership. Now let's say that this self-published book is a runaway success for the author. As you can imagine, human nature will creep into the whole project. And if it is a success, the non-lead or non-controlling co-authors might think that their contribution to the book is now more valuable, and they may want more. This has to go back to the legal agreements that you set up at the outset. Now here's how a co-authored self-published book can go really bad, really quick. This real-life example will illustrate it very clearly. This book was an anthology. However, the basis of it was very similar to a co-authored book. So I think we can look at that circumstance and see how it relates to this situation. In exchange for their financial investment and their contribution of writing to the book, the controlling self-published anthology editor would give each of the authors an electronic copy of the final manuscript to sell on their own websites so that they could make some revenues off of it on their own. Part of the terms of the agreement with the authors was that the co-authors would not get any Amazon royalties or revenues. I was curious about the book. I was intrigued by the model, and so I wandered over to Amazon to look up the title. There were multiple entries for the exact same title, but each entry had a different author. What the contributing authors had done was they self-published the final manuscript as their own on Kindle Direct Publishing instead of selling it on their websites. Some of the co-authors would list the other authors on the project, others didn't. This presents a host of issues for the controlling co-author, which was the editor on this book. Which editions would readers buy? The official one by the controlling author, or one of the many co-authors? Would readers think that these additional listings for the same book might be pirated editions? And would the rogue contributing authors sell it for less than the controlling co-author in charge? That would reduce the sales, of course, for the lead editor and lead co-author. You can understand why these contributing authors would go this way, because selling your book direct on your website is a massive undertaking. There are all kinds of things you have to take care of. Fulfillment, file storage and distribution, customer service, payment processing, sales taxes. The list keeps going on. So you can understand why they said, hey, I'm not interested in just selling it on my website. This is ridiculous. I'm going to go through Kindle Direct Publishing. So what legal remedies does the controlling co-author and lead author have? Well, not too many, because that wasn't a stipulation in the terms that they could not republish it on Kindle. So again, here's why you need to go back to those legal agreements when you co-author on a self-publishing project to make sure that everybody knows their rights, responsibilities, and limitations. Confession, I actually considered a similar type of book project in the past, actually many years ago. But then I realized all these potential problems and many more that I'm not even talking about here. So I scrapped the whole idea even before any of the contributing authors submitted any manuscripts. And I consider that a real relief because I probably averted a lot of disaster for myself. So I hope you have found this helpful. If you are considering leading a self-published co-authoring project, or if you're invited to participate in one. And if you did find it helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to The Heidi Thorne Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcast, Amazon TuneIn Radio, or Podbean. If you like the video version better, just subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and turn on the notifications so that you'll get an alert when a new video is available. I would appreciate it if you would share the podcast or the video with your friends on social media. My self-published books, which are only written by me, are on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. All you have to do is go to one of those sites, type in my name, go to my Heidi Thorne author page, and you'll see all the books listed there. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is very simply HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.